Hello and welcome to coverage of Grand Prix Los Angeles. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Luis Scott Vargas. We have two 8-0s here, Luis. Eugene Huang, he's been in the King of the Hill table for the duration of the day here, and he's facing down now 8-0 Brian Kibler, who played a very similar deck to this at the Pro Tour last week. Didn't have a lot of success, stuck with it, and now it looks like he's really hit his stride.
Yeah, things could be getting hairy for Eugene here because Kibler's on the board first and is going to follow it up potentially with like a Savage Knuckle Blade. And he's got the mana to do so, and he's got the attack, which leads me to believe that he might have it.
Well, he would have played it first, right?
That's true. He would have actually slammed it. So
yeah.
He could be leaving up Teamer Charm, which not the most impressive play on Seder Wayfinder, unfortunately.
No, and it looks like he's decided not to play anything here. That's weird, though, because he's got multiple morphs in the deck, too. Like, he should have a play on turn 3 every single time, no matter what. So he might have left up Teamer Charm and just decided, you know what, I don't want to counter a Wayfinder, but you know, if that's Eugene's play for the turn.
Well, it was a Wayfinder miss, and then it was Swamp, but with his hand on it, so he could take it back, which, you know, very legitimate, play Opulent Palace. The problem is, Kibler knows what that means, as should anyone. Eugene has Murderous Cut in hand, or he's masterfully bluffing it.
Okay. But there's really not a huge point to bluffing it anyway against Kibler, right?
Yeah, I mean, Kibler's going to play Savage Knuckle Blade. If he had it last turn, I think he would have played it.
Okay.
But it's possible Kibler wouldn't want to play it because he would want to keep up Teamer Charm last turn, but I still think it's stronger to get Savage Knuckle Blade down than have Teamer Charm up. But given the way Eugene, you know, played that Swamp, unless he, again, was bluffing Murderous Cut, which he, you know, could be within his range. I don't know him. He's giving away a little information by doing that.
Okay. So he played, wow, bricks again. He plays Sidisi and doesn't find a creature there. He finds no lands with his Wayfinder and all lands with his Sidisi.
I don't think that's how he drew it up.
I don't think so either.
I think he'd rather have a zombie and play an extra land in his hand.
But as it stands, he's got a 3/3 for 4. So Hill Giant for Eugene Huang, at least currently, and Kibler, well, he is going to beat down real hard this turn. He's going to hit for at least 7. He can bash in for 9 if unblocked here, if that's what he wants. And Eugene's already at 15, so, you know, 7 to 9 damage here is going to be a huge chunk out of his life total.
And if Kibler's cracking Wooded Foothills pre-combat, it might mean that he has Sarkin or potentially another play. I guess Lightning Strike makes sense as well.
Maybe, or he's got a 3-drop as well to follow up. I mean,
he just wants to sack it now, so he has Teamer Charm up. If he didn't pump here, it's a little suspicious. But
like if he didn't pump and didn't play anything,
right.
Yeah, now it looks a lot like Teamer Charm.
But what can Eugene do? He's so far behind here. And I'm starting to think that his Murderous Cut bluff maybe might have been one, because actually, no, he's got it in his hand. He actually did have the Murderous Cut.
Okay, and here is Sidisi, and that is going to prompt a Teamer Charm, but while Kibler's tapped out, Murderous Cut is going to take down Savage Knuckle Blade.
And that shows the power of Murderous Cut. Getting to play 2 relevant spells on 5 mana is what could win Eugene this game. I mean, he's still behind, but a normal deck that has all spells that cost 3 or more mana has no real chance.
Sarkhan activated, and that's going to activate Heir of the Wilds as well. And bang, there's 7 damage hitting Eugene, dropping him to Uno, and that's going to do it. Brian Kibler takes down game 1 in impressive fashion. Got ahead, stay ahead.
Well, after testing with Kibler a lot, I can attest to the fact that he's always hungry. So I think maybe he wants to win this round quickly to go get food. I think that's his strategy.
I think that's your strategy in every game you play ever.
Yeah, but then I signed into a commentary where I'm guaranteed to be here for the entire round.
Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Well,
you just, what ends up happening is you eat my food.
That is true. That has happened before. So looks like we're on the live look-in here.
Yeah, live look-in. Sean McLaren versus Josh Utter-Leyton.
And even though I do like Hushwing Griff in the Jeskai deck, I don't think it's very good in the mirror. I mean, it does not match up well against cards like Mana Strider, which Josh has here. Mm-hmm. So it's for the Abzan matchup, so it makes sense there. But, you know, or Green Devotion, but, you know, Mana Strider is a little bit more impressive when no creatures have, you know, enter the battlefield abilities on either side. McLaren playing a 5-drop. If he plays a Sarkin and just, you know, blasts that Mana Strider, that puts him in a pretty good spot here.
He's going to play his own Mana Strider here, and he's also got
Lightning Strike.
Lightning Strike to take down the opposing one and get in there for 5 damage for Sean McLaren.
That puts him pretty far ahead of Josh. I mean, Josh is going to want basically getting to play 2 spells in the same turn.
He's actually way ahead.
Josh
is at 7 now after that hit.
Yeah, basically McLaren's at the point where his spells all hit Josh before Josh deals with them, because Josh is the one who's like now going to have to constantly be tapping out, which makes it really hard to come back. There's not that many swingy cards. I mean, there's no like Siege Rhino type of card in the mirror that lets you come back from a losing position.
Yeah, McLaren's at 14 life. He's safe. Randy, what's going on over there?
Yeah, I've been watching the undefeated tables, so I was kind of going down the top trying to see what the metagame is. What are the decks that got to 8-0?
A lot of abs out. We haven't seen abs on it. It feels absent.
So, look, there are 5 tables where it's 8-0, 8-0, and it only took me 3 tables to find all 5 clans.
Wow.
All 5 clans. Temur, Sultai, Jeskai, Abzan, Mardu, Abzan. Those were my first 3 tables. So then I go to table 4, and I see Boss Sly. 30 red 1-drops, 18 mountains, shuffle up and go, just blowing out the Abzan aggro deck with a coordinated assault to kill both the Herald of Torment and an Heir of the Wilds.
Wow.
Super sick. So Eric Pay looking pretty good to get to 9-0. He won that game for sure. And then there's the 3rd Abzan up there and a 2nd Jeskai.
Okay, wow. In the meantime, Josh Utter-Leyton is taking his lumps here. Sean McLaren piling in there for a lethal attack, and Josh doesn't have a way to deal with enough of the threats to survive, so he's going to scoop up his permanents. And on our side table as well, I mentioned we have Jacob Wilson versus Huey Jensen. Jacob Wilson up a game over Huey there. And those are win-ins as well, and so is this one here. So,
with Jacob Wilson on the Abzan aggro deck, and Huey actually sleeving up Jeskai here. So we're seeing a lot of Jeskai in this feature match. Area. There's Huey, as well as Tom Martell, as well as Josh Utter-Leyton, all on Jeskai.
You think the format adapted itself to the Abzan and the Jeskai decks?
We're still getting there. I mean, people are still discovering what tweaks make you better and worse in those matchups. We're still seeing if they're a deck that like fundamentally is good against those decks. I mean, I like Whip Reanimator in general against those decks, but it's possible that it has enough other bad matchups. Like it doesn't want to play against Perilous Vault Blue Black, for example.
That hat is just ridiculous.
And but I think right now, I mean, Abzan and Jeskai are still obviously tier 1 decks that you're going to see a lot of.
Yes.
But what that actually means isn't quite clear. I mean, there's a lot of ways to build both those decks.
And from what Randy said, it sounds like people have branched out into all directions and are having success here on day 1 in LA. Could be one of those great formats that's really wide open. It will always eventually whittle itself down, but the question is how long do we get
formats
diversity?
coalesce? They get more set as the longer time goes on. But not only does this format look good, and it looks like it's pretty replayable because there's a lot of different ways to build the decks. Also, I mean, next year we're going to have standard rotate at a faster clip. We're going to see more of that. I mean, I'm excited going forward. Basically, as long as we don't have what we had last year, we're in a really good spot. I mean, I think Theros block standard was good initially, but it didn't change enough over the course of the year.
Right.
Which a lot of people have said.
Yes.
And I think this year we're going to see a lot more of that. And
I think so
even
too.
more next year.
This is sweet. All right, let's take a look at Eugene Huang's hand here, see what he was trying to come up with to battle Brian Kilber, who kind of just ran him over in the first game. It wasn't really that close, and looks like Eugene's playing correctly this time. He has multiple choices on lands from his Satyr Wayfinder. That's a lot better than the first.
And his hand's quite good. I mean, Murderous Cut is his best card, I think, in the matchup, just because it kills Savage Knuckleblade for 1 mana.
Right.
And it doesn't kill Sarkhan. That is annoying, but it still kills Knuckleblade for 1 mana. And he's got Bioblight to deal with whatever Kilber plays on 2. He's got a Courser, so he has a ton of options this game. He's lacking a finisher card, but when you have a Courser in play, you get to those a little sooner, especially when you have fetch lands to kind of thin your deck and shuffle your top card. So he very much just wants to survive, and then he'll end up in a better spot.
So is Eugene incentivized here to fire off that Murderous Cut on the Rattleclaw Mystic, or would he rather save it for the big threats that the Rattleclaw Mystic produces?
Well, you certainly don't want to Murderous Cut it over casting Bioblight. I would rather.
Oh, he's got Bioblight in his hand?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I would rather just cast Courser, I think. I think you can't Murderous Cut Rattleclaw unless your hand is really good.
Well, I mean, would you use a removal spell on it?
Right.
That's my main
Bioblight I'm more inclined to. You have less targets for Bioblight in general. And but even then, I mean, I think just getting a Courser out seems pretty good.
Okay. There it is. It also holds down the fort here from what he's
Also, you could just ignore the Rattleclaw and kill whatever Kilber plays. He doesn't have a ton of high-end stuff that needs 6 mana. He's got a lot of 4s and 3s, but he doesn't have a lot of 5s and 6s. He's got just Sarkhan at 5.
He's also got all of his colors down there. So he does fire off a Pelucranos here, which is a big one. So that is going to demand a Murderous Cut or something similar.
It is, and it actually looks like that is a Hornet Queen peeking out over there if my bottom right-hand corner reading skills are correct.
Oh, jeez.
Which makes Eugene now know, that he's got a game plan. Now know that he's got a pretty solid way to win this game. Like, all he has to do is survive. He has to make sure he just doesn't die to Savage Knuckle Blades before he can cast Hornet Queen. And Kibler's deck really doesn't have a great answer to Hornet Queen once it resolves.
If it resolves...
I mean, he's got Teamer Charm. Teamer Charm's actually a good out, because it can counter it on the way down, or make all the Hornets unable to block.
Right.
If it does resolve.
Unfortunately for him, Eugene's at 19, so it's not like he's gonna have to build up one heck of a board state to be able to get through for one big hit.
Yeah, and again, Kibler's deck is so good when it has a creature in play, and kind of bad when it doesn't. Like, it's a tempo deck. It's a deck that really wants a threat in play, and just to like deal with your opponent's threats and answers once that happens. And so this is the kind of board state he doesn't really want to be in.
All right, so he plays an Heir of the Wilds and passes the turn back with 3 mana available, definitely representing Teamer Charm here.
But luckily for him and or Eugene, he doesn't really have anything to play anyway, so he can't play into Teamer Charm. He's just going to sit there on Bioblight and Murder's Cut and just pass the turn, I imagine, unless he's got something else that's worth playing. He hit an extra land off Courser. He's got a Whip on top of his deck, so even if the Hornet Queen gets dealt with, he's got more options here.
How big of a problem is Whip for Kibler's deck?
It's, I think, not as big of a problem as for a Jeskai deck, because a Jeskai deck is trying to burn you out, so it'll let you accumulate a board and just ignore it while it's chucking burn at your head. Kibler's deck really wants to just make sure your board is clear, so he does a better job of that. I mean, he does a better job of like getting ahead and staying ahead. So Whip is not as good when you don't have anything in play, which is more likely to happen against Kibler's deck.
Okay.
That being said, Whip is still good if Kibler can get into a spot, or if Eugene can get into a spot where Kibler's not hitting him for a lot of damage.
Okay, so it looks like Eugene did decide to take down Heir of the Wilds there.
And he did it main phase, I think.
He did it on his main phase. And on end step there, Kibler's going to flash in a Boon Satyr, just non-bestow, just the old 4/2.
Which I think is the most common way for it to come down. Kibler's basically playing it as a flash way to, put a threat on the board.
Speaking of putting threats on the board, Brian Kibler is now, well, he's going to use it somewhat as a threat, but like you said, he's better at controlling the board. He's going to use it to actually take down the Courser Crucifix there.
The only disadvantage to that is now you can't really attack with any creature if you're worried about Sarkhan, because otherwise Eugene can use removal on the other one and kill Sarkhan. So
right.
Eugene doesn't have a great answer to Sarkhan though, given that Kibler kept both of his creatures back.
Right, Kibler certainly did that.
So Eugene now scrying off Temple. He's presumably going to play a Hornet Queen next turn, and both him and Kibler know that. So how that affects his plays, we'll see. I think playing the Whip first is pretty good. I mean, Sarkhan's going to start hitting you, but once you have a Hornet Queen and a Whip out, you can kind of ignore it. You can block it with a token, attack back for 5, maybe block it with a Hornet Queen and whip back Hornet Queen.
Okay, so Sarkhan becomes a creature. And there's 8 damage. Eugene's at 20.
I don't mind using Murderous Cut on the Boon Satyr here. You're going to tap out next turn. Seems like a good use of mana as any, since you're not getting hit by a Knuckle Blade. You don't even care if Kibler uses Teamer Charm here. Whether or not Kibler has it, he knows Hornet Queen's coming down, so I think he has incentive to not use it quite yet.
Well, he's got a Morph here and a land, still has a card in hand, still has a 3 mana for Teamer Charm. But as this game sort of starts to get longer and as Kibler hasn't mounted, tremendous pressure, it starts to feel like that Whip could take over. Oh, and it actually resolves anyway?
Yeah, and Kibler's looking like, like all the world like he's got Teamer Charm,
yes.
But unfortunately for him, he did not.
And his opponent really just went for it, and why not, right? I mean, he's got a Whip in play anyway. He can just get that Hornet Queen back, even if it gets countered. Right. Quick result from our side table. Jacob Wilson into day 2, defeating William Huey Jensen.
Looks like Sarkhan's going to rumble here because he's got nothing better to do with him.
Right. Remember, he's indestructible, so the Death Touch isn't going to matter. You mentioned this play a second ago, Luis. He's going to block with the Hornet Queen, which gives him access to whip it back and make even more Hornet tokens. And Eugene's just kind of going off here. I mean, that's ridiculous. Yeah,
unless that morph is something real cool off of Mana Confluence, right. I think Kibler's in a fair amount of trouble.
Yeah. Yeah, we know that Kibler's 2 morphs are the Ashcloud Phoenix and Rattleclaw Mystic. I don't think he has any others.
Yeah, he had Sagu Maulers in an initial build, but they ended up being not quite what he was looking for.
Okay. right? So some number of Hornets are attacking. I think the Hornet Queen herself plus one of the non-summoning sick Hornets got in there and killed Sark, and he didn't bother putting it into play. And what was it? It was another Mystic.
Yeah,
So
I wouldn't imagine Ashcloud Phoenix is really what Kibler's looking for here.
It's a bunch of 1/1 flyers.
Yeah.
All right, so that's going to do it for game 2, and we're going to get an exciting conclusion here to see who's going to remain undefeated. There are others in the field who are undefeated as well, but this is a King of the Hill match. Let's take a quick look back over at what Raptor's up to. Josh Utter-Leyton, he's playing against Sean McLaren.
He's up to not playing lands apparently since
He
there's a prognostic
looks
fix
slightly
facing down.
outlanded.
I was like, oh, Josh is a turn 3 Bremaz, but it might be like a turn 6 Bremaz.
Yeah, it could be. We saw Josh lose the first game.
It looks like Sean McLaren is convinced that Seeker's gotten a little better, so he's playing 2 in this deck instead of the 1 he played at the Pro Tour.
Now, did he cut the Anger of the Gods?
He does not have the main deck Anger of the Gods anymore.
That was
Which I imagine is wise.
A tournament-only decision, it seems. Wow. And McLaren just has it all.
Yeah, with the prognostic Sphinx out, it's a little easier to have it all because you got to scry a bunch. But yeah, Josh
sure.
is in a lot of trouble here. Basically, irrespective of what the life totals are, Josh is not in great shape.
Now it looks like that was a Brimaz that was put back on top
Yeah,
of Jessica.
certainly not what he
just
needs to win this
Shipped it to
game.
the bottom, yeah. And what does he need to win this game? Like, there's not a lot, right? Does he have N hostilities or some big powerhouse out of the board?
He's got 1 main deck prognostic Sphinx. This is of course game 2, but he has access to
Yeah.
1 prognostic Sphinx that can block Sean's. He's got not a whole lot else. He's got 1 N hostilities, but I don't think he sideboarded in here because it's generally not what you want.
No. Is he too far behind?
He's not necessarily dead if Sean doesn't have anything, but given that Sean's been scrying every turn and probably looks like has a dissolve in hand, I would say it's going to be a stretch for Josh to come back.
Okay. He now has 4 lands. Maybe even another one on the way there. Goblin Rabble Master from Josh.
Presumably just going to trade for a Magma Jet, or unless Sean is getting to the point where he can burn out Josh, then at that point he might even do better.
Right. But no. Nope, Sean's still in the business of controlling the board, so he's going to kill the Rabble Master with the Jet, ship 1 at the top, 1 at the bottom, off of the Scry ability. Draw that card. He still has that Dissolve sitting in hand for anything egregious, but yeah, this Prognostic Sphinx, the damage has to be adding up, but really, the way he's been able to sculpt his draw is just...
And the fact that Sean has enough lands out that he can do something like cast Dissolve, still cast Dig Through Time, or cast Lightning Strike or Jeskai Charm and then still cast something else. Like he's able to present 2 cards a turn, and so the fact that Josh has more cards in hand is not really relevant.
Right. Okay, he's got a Mantis Rider as a follow-up. Sean's at 19. Josh Utter-Leyton's life total is 10 right now. Sean did scry all 3 to the bottom with his Sphinx. He's going to scry that one to the bottom with Dissolve. He knows what he's looking for.
Yeah,
More counter
mostly,
spells.
yeah, Dissolves and Dig Through Times are his highest priority, but really burn spells are getting to the point where they're good too, because now Josh is down to 7.
Yeah, Josh falls down to 7, so any burn spell takes 1 turn off the clock as it sits. And most 2 burn spell combinations will just kill Josh a turn sooner even than that. He's got another Dissolve in his hand there. And there's a Dig Through Time from Josh.
Looks like it's going to get negated. Just kind of unfortunate for Josh, since
Yes.
Dig is one of the few cards that could actually get him at least to a point where he can fight, but...
All right, let's bounce back to our main match. We've got a game 3 here between... Well, I didn't think of this as what I was going to see, but I'm really glad I'm seeing this. Teamer Midrange versus Sultai. It's and it maybe even Teamer Tempo is the way to think about this card. I mean, it really is trying to get out ahead and stay there.
Yeah, and unfortunately for Kibler, he doesn't have Elvish Mystic or Rattleclaw Mystic, or Heir to the Wild. So he's got no early plays, which is not where he wants to be. I mean, he can play a Knuckleblade now, but Eugene's in a position where he can now start using his removal spells and like next turn play like Seder Wayfinder into Murderous Cut or something along those lines.
So Kibler actually just plays a land, he has all of his colors, and it's just like, go.
Well, assuming we ruled out Elvish Mystics, Hair of the Wilds, and Rattleclaw Mystic, He could have Savage Knuckleblade in hand, or he could have Boon Satyr. Those are both relevant plays. I mean, keeping up Boon Satyr and casting Temur Charm is pretty good. That's a good mill, I mean, under any circumstances. You put a Hornet Queen in the bin, you hit a Temple, you've put enough cards in your graveyard that you can now cast a Murderous Cut. Like, if Kibler flashes in a Boon Satyr, there's a pretty good chance Eugene just Murderous Cuts it if it doesn't have other things to play.
Right. All right, so here goes Kibler.
Presumably getting a Mountain and then casting Boon Satyr, at least that's what he wants to be doing. There's a chance Eugene just double blocks it too. Like, even if Kibler has a trick, you lost a Satyr Wayfinder, it's not a big deal.
Right.
You're basically trading Elvish Mystic and Satyr Wayfinder for a trick and still drawing a land off the Wayfinder, so, and forcing Kibler to tap mana, the most important part. Because Kibler has all his cards. He has the Boon Satyr and he has the Temur Charm.
Right. Sean McLaren did finish off Josh Utter-Leyton there to advance to day 2. These players have not had to worry about day 2 for a few rounds now. They got their eyes on the prize. Finishing strong 9-0 at day 1 puts you in such a good spot to make a run at the top 8 the next day. Finishing with 1 loss is still very solid, but there's a big difference.
Kibler's got a lot of options this turn. It doesn't necessarily look like he has a 4th land, but he's got Boon Satyr, Crater Claws, Temur Charm, and he's got to be worried because Eugene, if he untaps with 5 mana, there's a lot of cards he can play. 6 mana even if his Mystic survives. So, I mean, Kibler's deck does not do well against like a Sidisi that makes a zombie, for example. If you're trying to kill them with 4/2s, that's not what you want to see.
Right.
On the other hand, if Kibler passes with Temur Charm mana up and Eugene just plays like a Wayfinder and passes the turn with removal mana up, that's not great for Kibler either.
And
so
that seems to be Eugene's plan. Like, he's certainly aware of Temur Charm, and he's been fine just playing the longer, more patient game anyway.
Kibler cutting off the double block potential with the Crater's Claws there, which is enabled by Boon Satyr, giving him Ferocious.
And there's a chump block from Eugene.
Has Eugene ever not blocked with Satyr Wayfinder when given the opportunity?
He throws it right in the way.
Which I believe is correct. That's what the card is there for.
Yeah, and Eugene seems clearly aware to keep his life total as high as possible. You know, he had some attacks in the last game that he could make, but he saw no reason to do it. He knew that the game wasn't going to be won by him chipping away on the ground for 1 or 2 damage. It was going to be a longer game. He just needed to survive till then. All right, chop that thing down with a Murderous Cut. No.
An actual misstep here.
Stroke.
You're letting Kibler, who's stuck on lands, use lands in a relevant way. He's playing around Temur Charm, which I understand, and he hasn't seemed to stay in full stroke. So it's not necessarily an error on his part, but it's one of the ways Eugene loses this game. Is Kibler got to use 2 mana on a turn where he wasn't using mana, and now Kibler has the Boon Satyr and Hall's mana untapped.
Wow, yeah,
which
look
is
at the
exactly where he
situation.
wants to be.
Yeah, now he's like all of a sudden in a great spot, right? Where now if he does have Temur Charm, it's good to go. But it looks like he's not going to take that. He's going to play a Pelucranos and just pass the turn back tapped out. I think he's content to have 2 massive threats here.
And Eugene's a turn behind. Killing that Elvish Mystic was pretty good for Kibler, since Eugene now looks like he has double Hornet Queen, but I don't think they're going to get a chance to do enough, because he's taking 9 this turn. Kibler's going to Temur Charm the first Hornet Queen, and then potentially, actually, even better, Kibler can just let it resolve, play Boon Satyr end of turn, untap, cast Temur Charm, and attack with everything.
And kill you.
So it looks like Kibler has pulled it out. I mean, there was that 1 turn hiccup was all he needed. He needed Eugene getting his turn 5 spell countered and his turn 4 spell countered and his turn 5 was spent doing nothing.
So you mentioned it that like Eugene is not exactly sure about what Kibler's playing, what he's not playing, what he's boarded and what he's not. But you're saying if he would have passed a turn to Kibler and been like on your upkeep or during your attack, Murderous Cut that thing, now Kibler can't develop his board if he wants to protect his Boon Satyr and he can get ahead. And there it is. He shows him Temur Charm. And that's it. Brian Kibler, 9-0 in day 1 here at GP Los Angeles with Temur.